Imagine having a family member you were only allowed to see for about half an hour annually, and the only things you know about them are the preconceived notions you've been given by what people have told you. Like that drunk uncle who isn't allowed to play with the kids? Yeah, like that. Except apparently this uncle is a devil worshiper with no morals and is basically the worst human being on earth. Or really, that's just what you've been told. Papa Nuquio is that drunk, devil-worshipping uncle in the eyes of Kimbili and Jaja. Having Papa as a son, a man of devout worship and closed-mindedness, Papa Nuquio is seen as an unholy man with no morals or values. But is this really who he is as a person? We've decided to take a deep look into the relationships Papa Nuquio has with the people in his life. To answer this question, how does Papa Nuquio's characterization throughout the novel add to the theme of the book? And the theme we've chosen is one that shows that the lack of knowledge about a person or idea creates a damaging one-story point of view that lacks depth and accuracy.
So, let's start from the beginning. Papa Nuquio doesn't have a large part in Kimbili and Jaja's lives. In fact, he isn't even mentioned until 61 pages into the novel, and it shows how truly disconnected he is from the kids' lives, as Papa explains to the kids the rules of the annual visit to his house. No drinking or eating any of his food, and they can only stay for a maximum of 15 minutes. Needless to say, this is no average trip over the river and through the woods. So, the kids go to Papa Nuquio's house, and it's a total dump, to put it lightly. Definitely not the palaces they are used to. So, the visit happens, and it's, well, awkward to say the least. Papa Nuquio offers them food and drink, which they obviously don't accept. And what ensues is probably the most awkward scene of the whole book, as they discuss such riveting topics as Nuquio's deteriorating health and the food. Yikes. Okay, so let's discuss the horribleness of this scene and why it's so painfully awkward and dull. Let's start with the obvious. These kids never see this man. 15 minutes over a lifetime does not allow for much bonding, to say the least. Secondly, what appears to be a major theme throughout this novel, and for this specific relationship in particular, is the struggle of a one story. Now, a one story is this idea of growing up with one story or likeness of a person or people, that you eventually only think of this person or people in this one light, creating stereotypes that are often hard to break. This is definitely true for the kids and how they view Nuquio. The kids have also been so sheltered from Nuquio that they know virtually nothing about him except what their father has told them. And what their father has told them hasn't been good. He refers to him as a pagan heathen who wasn't even allowed to their house due to his devilish ways. Yikes. Getting back to the visit, the kids commit the worst possible crime known to mankind. The kids spend more than 15 minutes at their grandpa's house. I know. They obviously initiated in some pagan rituals and turned to the devil himself. To us, that seems ridiculous, but later on page 106, Kimbili confesses to this sin to Father Benedict. 6 Hail Marys later and all is forgiven, I guess. So, to sum it up simply, they aren't close, and they know very little about Papa Nuquio in the beginning. They barely see him, and they do it so short and restricted it might as well have never have happened. This results in the kids knowing virtually nothing about him. At least what they've gathered for themselves. Despite this rocky beginning, the relationship does grow, as we witness in the later 3 points.
Up until now, Kimbili and Jaja have seen nothing more of Nuquio's personality than their father has told them. During a visit to his home, they go in and Papa Nuquio greets them happily. Kimbili examines him for signs of godlessness, and though she cannot see any, she is sure they must be there. Right? This phrase sets up the theme of a single story, and how Kimbili is characterizing him just based on what she knows beforehand. He offers to buy them soft drinks, saying that they, surely, cannot be heathen. Jaja first declines, but then says that if he were thirsty, he would drink in Papa Nuquio's house. How sweet. Jaja nudges Kimbili, as it is time for them to go, but Kimbili finds herself unable to leave, wanting to stay and help Papa Nuquio. The readers can begin to see a glimpse of a relationship forming between the grandchildren and Nuquio during this visit. Kimbili tries to uphold Papa's sense of sin and order, but she and Jaja also can't help feeling a natural human affection for their grandfather, as one normally should. One that is difficult to reconcile with Papa's image of Papa Nuquio as a godless heathen destined for hell. Kimbili asks Jaja later if he will confess to saying this to Nuquio, and Jaja says he was just saying it to make his grandfather feel better, but we know better. Next, Ifioma convinces Papa to let the children come stay with her again. Ifioma says that Papa Nukwio is not a pagan, but a traditionalist. Kambili only knows that neither of those things mean Catholic, so obviously he is destined for hell either way. We as the readers know that there is more to his character than Kambili is leading us to believe. Ifioma tells Papa that Nukwio is dying, and he should stop trying to decide who goes to heaven or hell, and to leave that for the big man upstairs. Jaja becomes concerned with Papa Nukwio's health, while Kambili is concerned with Papa finding out that they are sharing a house with him. Kambili continues to cling to her guilt at breaking Papa's rules, while Jaja has begun to move past them and see Papa Nukwio as a person. That night, the power goes out during dinner. Kambili's cousin asks Papa Nukwio to tell them a folk story. While Ifioma's family finds this normal, Jaja and Kambili only see their grandfather for 15 minutes a year. They've never heard a heathen speak this way. Kambili has heard all about the evils of Papa Nukwio's paganism, but doesn't actually know anything about it. Papa Nukwio simply tells an old story to entertain his grandchildren and pass on a tradition. There is nothing frightening or wicked about it, and so Kambili is confused about why it is so sinful. And yet, she still can't bring herself to enjoy it. Here we can see that Kambili is allowing herself to question Papa's orders, and we are able to see more of what Kambili sees of her grandfather as a person, rather than as a soul destined for hell. Kambili soon realizes, as Amaka is painting and having an actual relationship with her grandfather, that Kambili is envious of the fact that she doesn't have that same relationship, mostly due to the fact that she has tried to strictly stick to the single story concept. Papa has basically denied Jaja and Kambili outside friendship and familial love, and so Kambili has never gotten to know her grandfather like Amaka has. Kambili finally starts to realize and regret this fact. Kambili is starting to see how her silence negatively impacts her ability to engage with the world, and have fun in it by having relationships with people such as her grandfather.
When Papa Nukwio arrives at Auntie Ifioma's house, Kambili and Jaja notice how he visibly looks sicker. He's skinnier, more fragile, and exhausted. Unlike Kambili's usual brief meetings with her grandfather over her years of growing up, Kambili begins to embrace Papa Nukwio as her family and not some pagan her father Papa made him out to be. Kambili even confides in Papa Nukwio about her indescribable feelings for Father Amadi and how she looks up to him. Although Papa's nagging voice resounds from the back of Kambili's head when her and Papa Nukwio talk, she feels happy, as if she grew up talking to him her whole life. Yay! Family bonding time! Kambili becomes even more mesmerized as she watches the process of Papa Nukwio praying. She admires how passionate he is about the multiple gods he believes in, and how each one serves a purpose in helping his family, even Papa. Kambili is astonished that her grandfather would ask good things to enter into Papa's life, since Papa is very insulting and hasn't communicated with him for years. How rude! Anyway, Kambili watches as her cousin Amaka paints Papa Nukwio, highlighting all of the simple details that make him who he is. Kambili and Jaja are almost in disbelief when he dies in his sleep the next morning. All they can do is stand there and watch helplessly as his body is dragged out of the house. Kambili longs to feel the emotion plastered over Auntie Ifioma's and her cousins' faces as they sob, desperately wanting to cling on to her grandfather so she could create some better memories with him. Amaka helps slightly with that when she hands Kambili the unfinished painting of Papa Nukwio. Aw, how sweet! But it's already too late. All Kambili can do is stuff her sadness deep down inside in fear of Papa noticing her love towards Papa Nukwio. Yikes. Too bad that's not going to go unnoticed when Papa arrives, realizing Kambili and Jaja knew they were sharing a roof with a heathen and didn't tell him. Obviously, when Papa shows up, things aren't pleasant when he about drags Kambili and Jaja out of Auntie Ifioma's house to begin the journey home. Papa doesn't even spare one glance at his dead father and shows no remorse whatsoever. Wow, Papa might have to look to God for his sins. Father Benedict can't help him now. When Papa arrives with his children back at their rich and luxurious house, Cambili looks at it differently. She sees how all of her wealth led to destruction, while her cousins' lives in a house that closely resembles a garbage dump are happier and livelier than hers. Took her long enough to notice. Papa punishes Jaja and Cambili by running boiling water over their feet, and even has the audacity to feel remorseful and cry while he's hurting his children. Usually, Cambili resides to her room where her mother comforts her and she reflects on her sins. But this time, Cambili has changed the game. She is physically hurt, asking her mother simple questions about the process of her blistering feet healing, but her mind is elsewhere. Instead of reflecting on her so-called sins, Cambili thinks of the painting of Papa Nuquio hidden in her bag and almost tries to recall it from memory. Although Papa Nuquio is dead, Cambili holds on to the hope that her very small but significant connection with her grandfather remains within that unfinished painting.
Overall, Papa Nuquio has a lasting effect on both Cambili and Jaja. He was an outside source that opened their eyes to ideologies different than their own, or rather, different from Papa's. One of the last significant scenes in the novel regarding Papa Nuquio's image is in fact an important time that Cambili and Jaja stand up for themselves and for each other against Papa. So let's review that scene. Jaja and Cambili spend some good old sibling bonding time to admire a painting of Papa Nuquio that they brought into the house. Mind you, against Papa's permission. Spoiler alert, that's a big no-no. Jaja compares his figure to that of Papa Nuquio, taking pride in the similarities and cherishing the image of a man that has left an important imprint on Jaja and Cambili alike. The fun times end swiftly, however, when Papa barges through the room angry. Because what other mood would an abusive father be in? Rather than just taking the anger silently, however, Cambili and Jaja both stick up for one another, taking the blame and sacrificing themselves to a probably inevitable beating to save the other. Rather than going straight for the kids, however, Papa instead decided to take his anger out first on the painting, destroying it and hoping to destroy the attachments Cambili and Jaja have to Papa Nuquio along with it. This doesn't really work out in Papa's favor though. Cambili decided to put herself between Papa and the painting in hopes of saving not only it, but the sentiment that it carries along with it. Cambili gathered strength to show Papa she does in fact care for Papa Nuquio, the man that he has warned them to not get too close to. Ironically, they now admire Papa Nuquio and his morals far more than they ever admired Papa. Obviously, Papa isn't a fan of how the tables have turned, but frankly, Cambili and Jaja couldn't care less. They now value the image of a man far more deserving of love because of the positivity he gives Jaja and Cambili, rather than living in fear. Papa Nuquio's time with them has left a message in their minds that is different from the closed-minded one of Papa's. His legacy is one of open-mindedness, strength, and love. Cambili and Jaja take that to heart and have already started putting it to use.
Overall, Papa Nuquio's characterization throughout the novel defeats the one-story notion that Papa has sort of forced upon Jaja and Cambili. This idea that being non-religious means you have no morals or values is one that is destroyed through the image of Papa Nuquio in the eyes of Jaja and Cambili, and in turn, in the eyes of the readers. So we've looked at different stages of their relationship, a growth over time, and the everlasting effect this newfound knowledge has brought Cambili and Jaja. And so, let's answer the question we asked at the beginning of this video. How does Papa Nuquio's characterization add to the theme of this novel? Well, it's really quite simple. Papa Nuquio introduces Jaja and Cambili to his new way of life, one without religion but still full of love and human decency. His personality showed Cambili and Jaja that their one perspective on the world given to them by Papa is quite inaccurate, showing the readers the damage a one-story point of view can have, and that to combat it, all you have to do is get to know new people, new places, new situations, and gain the experience to have an informed opinion on the world. Thank you for watching, and I hope you can take this message of acceptance to your everyday lives.